Hi, and welcome to the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Bellomo, where we discuss all things estate planning and elder law. Now, today, I am humbled and honored to have a dear friend of mine, John Strittmatter, from my childhood back in the Ebensburg area, to join us on the podcast. John, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Anytime I get to spend some time with Jeff Bellomo is always a good time. I can't say enough good things about Jeff and his family.
Man, I'm looking forward to this. So just for way of background, I just want to remind all my listeners, if you're here today listening, please do not take any legal advice that you receive today as legal advice. What we are discussing does not create an attorney-client relationship, but rather we're here for informational and educational purposes only. If you need legal advice, please seek out an attorney in your state that you live in that practices in the area that you are looking for. But today, we are here to just have a little bit of fun. So as I introduced John, John and I grew up in the Ebensburg area together. We were friends from a young age because we wrestled together. But the one memory that I remember about John is I was 9 years old, I believe, and you were playing for Falshini's. I think it was Falshini's. And your brother Jody, of course, was the catcher on that team. And I just remember that was my first experience. I think I have the right name in terms of the team. But
yes, you are absolutely right. Yep.
Man, just from a young age. And then from that point forward, pretty much you and Jody kind of focused on wrestling, if I'm not wrong. Is that fair?
Yeah. We played a lot of the we played Little League, we played soccer, tried football. But wrestling and the competitiveness of it and setting goals is what really attracted us to that sport. As we got older, it was one of those things where we had success, and the more we worked, the more success we had, and it was very fulfilling, and to just keep going out and working hard and getting more and more of that success. So that's kind of where it started. Played all the sports, and then wrestling won over our hearts.
Yeah. Yeah, and you ultimately, John, were a national champion at UPJ, right?
Yes. I was on 2 national championship teams there, which was really gratifying looking back, being a part of that with my brother Jody, who's also a national champ there. Our team won. Our coach was the coach of the year. So it was a really special time for us, our family, in UPJ wrestling.
Yeah, it's incredible. I was in tears watching the experience, and as you know, I'm a huge fan from afar. You and I were able to travel to go see Jody wrestle in Iowa, and that's
right.
One of my memories of my childhood growing up that just is probably the most thing that sticks with me. And I remember from a young age him telling me, I'm going to wrestle for Iowa one day. I'm going to wrestle for Iowa one day. And, at that time, coming from Ebensburg, I didn't know if I liked his chances, but there's nothing like determination and discipline to get you somewhere, and it's just incredible what you guys are doing with young guns, coaching. I mean, you guys have a lot of places that you're coaching young kids now and teaching them wrestling.
Right. Yeah, we have 3 locations: Pittsburgh, Altoona, Johnstown. Actually, 4. Jody just opened a site he opened a brand new facility in Ebensburg area. So, 4 locations. Kids have been really all over the country, everywhere from Iowa, Penn State, Arizona State, Virginia Tech, you name it. They've been there. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I end up going to nationals every year, John, and we always have these polls that we bet all the guys I go with, and just play money for the record. But, we always kind of discuss who do we think is going to win. And it took a couple years till my group started to figure out that I picked the young guns guy from every weight class. I figured, I have a good chance. I don't know if I'll win every weight class, but certainly I'm going to have a decent shot at placing. And then finally one of them figured it out. He's like, they're all young guns guys. I'm like, yeah, because I know the guys who coach it, and I know what they instill, and I know who they are as people. And, the one thing that stands out for me, at least about you and Jody, and I'm sure it's what you're instilling in your kids, is I don't care if you're the best athlete, but be a good person, be a good human, do the right things when no one's looking. And that's what I remember about you and Jody. I imagine that probably is still continuing today.
Yeah, so that's kind of our secret, our secret blueprint is that character, we really pushed character hard, and that was kind of the what Jody and I had to do to reach our goals. I mean, like you said, growing up in Ebensburg, Pennsylvania, it was hard to. It didn't seem likely to go to such a powerhouse school like Iowa when we were kids, but by just doing the right thing, being a good person, working hard over time, that really, put us in a position, and especially Jody, to accomplish his goals and wrestle for Iowa. So that's what we really instill in our kids. And what's interesting is you see these kids when they're young, some of them are the best, or some aren't. But when it's all said and done and they get to college, they still keep getting better and better, because they love the sport. They're doing what they love, which I think is really important when you do what you love. And two, you have that character and work ethic, and that's a really good combination to do those. Have that, combination.
Yeah, absolutely. I coach a couple law firms across the country, anywhere from 8 to 12, depending on the time of year, and it is fascinating to me to talk to these attorneys. And admittedly, most attorneys aren't good business people by nature. We're not trained. We didn't go to school for that. Just because you're a good lawyer doesn't mean you're going to be a good business person. But from coaching as long as I have now, the fundamentals, right? The discipline, goal setting, calendaring, just consistency, showing up every day, doing the right thing. That's the blueprint for a good business and for a good business owner. And I think sometimes we make it too difficult. And having done the wrestling growing up, certainly not to the level that you and Jody did, but I could hold my own. But
That's right.
I was a multi. I did a lot of other sports, and just managing my time and managing my academics with you guys training as much as you were. It's just fascinating to me how a lot of people don't have that, and they struggle, and they don't know why they're struggling. But then, you ask them, what are you doing every day? What is your calendar showing? What are the priorities in your life? And you look at their calendar and it's showing a completely different picture, and they're struggling, and they don't understand why. And I to this day attest anyone who asks me, why do you think that you succeed in business? And I say, because of wrestling. The foundation, the fundamentals that I grew up with, I think are what has taken me to where I am. And, certainly the people I'm coaching don't like to hear that, and they get frustrated with me because they want to make it much more complicated. But at the end of the day, I don't think it is, and it's frustrating at times because I end up expecting what I am and who I am and what I grew up with. And, if you say you're going to turn your homework in, turn your homework in. I can't want this more than you. You have to want it as well. So when I was thinking about who would my first guest be, internally we were saying, let it be somebody from your childhood who hey, you have great memories and fond memories of, but also has the same discipline, the same ideas. And I thought, oh man, this is an easy one for me.
Right.
Very, very easy. So, not specifically in terms of names. Obviously, my listeners probably won't know a lot of the names, but you guys have had a lot of success in terms of national champs and All-Americans at every division known to man. Anything stick out for you as far as what a lot of them share in common, or anything in particular that you want to talk about?
So the love of what they're doing is something that's transferable. So when you love something and you have a passion for something, you're gonna you're gonna be successful. Okay, so I'll share a story, and I won't have names here, but I was at a wedding this weekend, and one of the dads was telling me how his son, when he was 11, his son beat two 12-year-olds. Now, what's interesting is those 12-year-olds, the one 12-year-old went on to be a 3-time All-American in college, and the other 12-year-old was a 2-time national prep champion, went on to become a 2-time All-American at the University of North Carolina. And he said, man, he's like, those were 2 great wins. And actually, where that took place was Central Cambria. He beat him at Central Cambria tournament.
Wow.
He said what happened is that those 2 kids that his son beat loved the sport so much that passion and drive took them on to accomplish some amazing things. And he said his son, who would admit it, he didn't have that love of wrestling. and he didn't, his career didn't turn out like the other two. So, when you're younger, sometimes you can get by on the volume of work that's put in. Sometimes parents can guide that a little bit, if they're really having you do something a lot, or athletic ability. So you can have quicker success, but in the long term, who's going to be really, really successful are those that have a passion and drive. Because if you have that passion and drive, you're going to figure out what you need to do technically, mentally, strength, to be successful. But if you don't have that love, it's too overwhelming. The amount of work you're going to have to put in is too overwhelming if you don't love it. What we always tell our kids is, and as you know, Jeff, we grew up on the dairy farm, and if my dad loves it. Like he sold the cows a couple years ago, and he still gets up at 3:30 every morning. That's just how he was programmed. But you would try to take someone who didn't love dairy farming and have them do that for even, we'll say, a week or two, getting up at 3:30 every morning, it would mentally break them. Yep. And that's the equivalent of being successful in anything challenging in life, is that if you don't have the passion, the work that it takes to be the best is going to be too much. But if you love it, then that work is just it's part of the process. You embrace that process of what it takes to be great.
And just listening to you, John, I think that's probably some of the issue with some of the attorneys that I'm coaching is, I think some of us become lawyers for one reason or another, but there probably are very few of us who love what we do, and I was unfortunate, with my mom getting sick and trying to find the answers to questions, and no one knew them, and there was nowhere to turn. And I said, well, I won't let this happen. Like, this is not the way that you should find out information, is in a hospital room when your mom's laying there in a bed next to you and you don't know what to do. And I've said that won't happen. And so I have a passion in my belly that I want to not let that happen to anyone else. And I want to make sure that I can educate everyone on how to protect your assets and what can be done. And so I wake up every day with this, like, I gotta go. And I'm not sure that a lot of the attorneys that I coach have that, right? I think they did it as a profession. Now they're doing it as a business, but I don't think they have that burning and the passion that it's required. And I think that was certainly well said. And I think you can't fake that, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe for a short period, but the one thing I was curious about, John, just because we grew up in a time when, you and Jody, as you said, you did a lot of sports young, you tried it all on, you tested it out. I'm getting the sense that nowadays, at least from the outside, people aren't trying as many sports anymore, and they're kind of, I'm going to be a football player, I'm going to be a track star, I'm going to be a wrestler. Is that real, or is that just my perception from the outside?
That's absolutely real, and I know as a father, my wife and I, we have 3 sons, and that is a challenge because we are trying to make them well-rounded as possible. I mean, right now they're doing soccer, indoor soccer, travel soccer. They're in gymnastics, which is really cool. Last night, so they're at the age now where you're starting to see that pay off, and you're starting to see them like tumble and flip, and that's so cool. That is so
wow.
They're in wrestling, and wrestling takes a great deal, to be successful. So every night of the week we have them somewhere, and they truly love the camaraderie of it. We try to do it in a way where we're not pushing, we're not, when they come over after practice, I'm not saying, okay, hey, you need to do 2 rope climbs or whatever. We like, whenever we started, Jody and I started at Central Cambria.
Yep.
We love wrestling, but I'm not sure if we love wrestling for trying to reach a goal. We love the camaraderie. We liked playing games. We played games before practice, after practice. We liked hanging out with our buddies. Yeah. And with our kids, my sons, that's what they love most about their sports, is just the interaction, the camaraderie. So we talk about the love. I want that love to really grow. And so I'm letting them do that. And they honestly, they're somewhere every day of the week. Tonight it's soccer. Great. Wednesdays are wrestling, Thursdays are wrestling, Fridays soccer. And then what's interesting is I went to my wife, I'm like, hey, I have one more activity, I'd like to sign the boys up. She's like, John, I don't know how we're going to do it. And I said, no, I think it's going to be really good. And we have Sunday evenings are open. So what do you think about signing the boys up for Boy Scouts? And she's like, I think they would really love that. They love those kind of, the first thing is a rocket launch, which they're absolutely psyched out of their mind about. So it's just trying to give them opportunities in a variety of things, what's going to help them long term. Let them enjoy the things about the sport that make it enjoyable, the camaraderie, and they love competition. When the Steelers lose a game, they actually have a hard time going to sleep at night. We try to make them feel that, hey guys, it's all right. It's a professional team. This is part of the deal.
Right.
They just love competition. So we're trying to expose them to a lot. But I will say, in the short term, it definitely makes it more difficult to have success, because if you're specializing, obviously you're going to have more short-term success. If you put a higher volume of time in than another, athlete, you're going to have more short-term success. But I can tell you this, Jeff, just like the guy at the wedding told me, you will have a very difficult time beating someone who's incredibly passionate and they're putting in a ton of work as you get older. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think the giving someone a love of something, it takes longer to do. It takes longer to put that foundation in, and there's not a blueprint for it. It's a lot of trial and error. But when a person gets intrinsic motivation, it's the most powerful thing in the world.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think back on my childhood. I played baseball through high school, and I was a wrestler, and in the marching band, and I loved my time there. I was the quad player, got to perform and compete every weekend, and I'm not even sure if I ever shared this story with you, but I had given up football because I wanted to play in the marching band into the high school, and I was having issues with my knees in middle school because I caught most of my life, and then I wrestled, so my knees were kind of a little rough, if you imagine there. And it just got to a point where I loved everything about it. I loved everything about the sports and everything, but I really enjoyed the marching band. And then my senior year, right at the end of my junior year, a mutual friend of ours said, "I'll never consider you a true athlete." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you don't play a real sport." And I said, "Well, man, I'm on the wrestling team with you. I'm on the baseball team with you. I do all these things with you. That doesn't even make sense. I'm in the weight room with you. Like, what? Well, until you play a real sport." And I went out. I did it. I practiced every day that summer. I basically told, the coach, what do I need to do to start? And he's like, well, you'd have to show up every single morning, 7 days a week, 7 a.m. And I delivered newspapers back then. So that was a 3 a.m. wake-up call to deliver the newspapers. And then 7 a.m., and then from 7 to 9, we lifted. 9 to 10, I did routes with our quarterback, Randy McCavish. And then after that, we did running and drills and stuff. And I didn't get done till 11. And then I was the manager at a water park in Windber. So I drove to Windber 12 to 9. I lifeguarded, and then I got up and did it all over. And it was incredible, and I did start. But I didn't love it. It wasn't my passion. And I missed out on these marching band competitions and watching my friends, win the whole East Coast, and the drumline wins the drumline. And it was tough for me. And I had an interview with a local reporter who we both know. And I was a kid, and I had broken some records, and he wanted to interview me, and he said, we were talking about the football and everything. And I said, "Hey, Hugh, can I talk to you off the record?" And I'm sure you know who I'm talking about now that I said that. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Yeah, of course, Jeff, of course." And I said, truthfully, I miss it. I miss the band. I miss the people. I miss the competition. To be honest, band camp's harder than football camp. They're your true friends. They got your back all the time, and sometimes I question on the football team, whether they're just there for themselves or whether they're for the team. And I'm a team guy. And so, well, I delivered newspapers. So at 3 a.m. I woke up, and I was the front page of the sports section. Truthfully, Bellomo said, I miss it, having made his decision to forego band camp's harder than football camp. I mean, John, you could imagine,
right.
Oh, my dad said to me as I was leaving that day, "Well, thank God you're bigger than all of them." I said, "Yeah, that's probably a good thing." But my point was, a lot of that is what shaped who I am. And even that decision, as much as I ended up, and I did go on to play football in college for 1 year, and there was no passion. There was no drive. I loved it because I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I did it for, someone challenged me. Someone said I wasn't an athlete, and I was going to prove them wrong, right? I wasn't going to let that happen. And it fizzled because there wasn't that intrinsic motivation or determination. And that's the one thing I try to stress with the business owners is, you don't have to love everything, but find the parts of the job that you do love. Because for me, it's relationships, it's podcasts, it's reconnecting, it's building. I'm reading a book. I'm just finishing a book up that we'll be releasing. I enjoy those things. I enjoy being out in the public doing presentations. So build your day so that you're doing what's your unique ability, what comes naturally to you, what comes easy to you. If you're not good in the conference room, then don't go in the conference room. Don't put yourself in a situation to fail, right? It's, a wrestler who knows their strengths and their weaknesses is going to do everything he can to keep himself out of that situation that he knows he would be vulnerable in. Yet, as a business owner, I think we have to do everything. That isn't true. So that's why I wanted to have a conversation with you, and it went exactly where I expected it to. I kind of had a feeling where we may end up talking about, drive and goals and passions. And, and I do want to say from the outside, bar none, I cannot think of one of the guys who came through, your program that I see at nationals or that even in the hallway or wherever that isn't respectful and, just a good kid. Let's just go to the fundamental piece of that. And that's where I always felt, I always said we were raised differently in Ebensburg, and the one thing I'll never forget, and we can't turn back time, but as you know, we wrestled together for a lot of years at Central Cambria, but you ended up going to high school because of the lines there to Cambria Heights, man.
Right.
My freshman year, we had one heck of a team that had you and Jody been on that team, man. We finished 9th in the nation that year. I think we would have won the whole national thing that year, but
yeah, that's
you know which team I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know that team. That was a special team.
It was a lot of fun. It really was. So, I mean, keep up what you're doing, John, and you guys are doing an incredible thing. Just to kind of end the thing, if there's a listener out there who's in the Pittsburgh to Altoona kind of area, and they've got a young wrestler who isn't maybe incredible yet, is that still someone that's good to go to camps and stuff for young guns?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's unique at Young Guns is we have kids who are competing for world team spots, but we also have kids who, they join us and they haven't won a match, or they're 5 years old, 6 years old. So what we try to do is wherever they're at, we try to make them the best version of themselves. Awesome. And really try to provide them that good foundation, the good intrinsic motivation. I always say that Jody is a whisperer of young athletes because he gets them. I have my own 3 sons around Jody as much as possible because he just gets kids to love the sport so much. And, and we share stories, different things about our life that hopefully can inspire them. What's really new, Jeff, is that so this summer I started a whole new routine. And so one of my friends, he works in sports psychology and whatnot. So he challenged me. It started with just having him, talk with my sons and whatnot. And so now I get up every morning, right? I go for my run, which I typically have always went for a run in the morning, but he kind of challenged me to go further. So I go for a run, and then during that run, I do my it's a gratefulness meditation, which is he's challenging me to be uncomfortable, right? So just for a few minutes every day, something I'm super grateful for. And then, challenge me to say some prayers, right? So say my prayers, and then come back. And here's the thing that just gets you jump started, right? So after that run, do some push-ups, right? Do like 100 push-ups, and then we call it a Mongolian shower. So I turn the shower on ice cold, right? As cold as it possibly gets. And like you're not allowed like put your hand in there to see like you just go in stone faced, right? You go in stone faced, and it's unbelievable. I mean, so when I come out of there, so I am so like excited and adrenalized, so much energy that it's like getting slapped in the face when you get in that ice. It's hard. Your heart starts beating really fast. It's hard. So, and then the other part of the routine is if you're a baseball fan, right? So they have walkout songs in baseball. Yep. So when I turn to the Central Cambria campus, right, I turn to New York Closer. There's a song called Narco or whatever. I turn that on, I crank it in my truck, and after all that stuff I did with my morning routine, I am ready to attack my day, man.
I love it.
Any challenge, anything I want to, boom. I'm like so excited to just attack the day, man. So that's kind of where we're at, man.
Dude, I love it.
Just try to do good things.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you always have, man, no matter how you were doing wrestling or whatever, you were always very respectful, always willing to help, always willing to be there for us younger guys, a little younger than you, and maybe not as as good at wrestling or as athletic, and so to all of us, we say thank you, and what you're doing for all of these kids, man, it's really inspiring, and I love to brag that I get to know you and Jody, and that I grew up with you, and I feel like I'm where I'm at because of both of you as well, and the lessons that I learned on the dairy farm and running up the hills, and the all the different things we did as kids. So,
Right.
so I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today on the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show. A little different today. I hope you had some fun with my friend John Strittmatter, who is the coach at Young Guns with his brother Jody, and they just have an incredible group of kids, wonderful wrestlers. If you're in the Pittsburgh to Altoona area, please check out Young Guns. They're certainly an amazing wrestling program. If you want your kids to be good people, good humans, and do the right thing, and certainly they'll get better at wrestling too, but that's not the point. So I'd like to thank John for taking the time. For those of you who are here for some estate planning and elder law, believe it or not, it was a great conversation today for my listeners to kind of just hear a little bit about discipline, and to all of the attorneys that I coach across the country, this was for you. I just kind of wanted to show you how the simple habits that we create young in life and discipline, time management bring us through. And whether you wrestled, played baseball, whatever sport or whatever you did growing up, all of that translates to being an adult and being a successful business owner. So, John, thank you. Thank you very much for being with us today.
It was an absolute pleasure, Jeff. It's an absolute
Thanks,
pleasure.
man. All right, take care. Thank you, guys.